Dear friends, welcome back to the Interrupter podcast. This is part 2, again with James the Heartist. Hopefully you like the first part where we talked a little bit about James' path, all the things he had experienced. Just a little note at the beginning, in case that you want to suggest future guests for the podcast, or you want to be on the podcast yourself. Please remember, we want to hear about the times in your lives where everything was difficult, where you had a crisis, where everything was falling apart. There has to be a space for that as well. And don't be shy. Talk about, those times during your life where you were struggling, where you had to get back on your feet and everything. Because that's how we can all together learn and understand, what people had to face. Today, in this part 2 with James, I would like to first of all talk about his newest song. It's called A Bad Taste of Saffron. It's available...
It's called Saffron.
Saffron, sorry.
Saffron, no. Within the song it says Bad Taste of Saffron.
Yeah, and it's available on iTunes and...
all digital platforms. You can find it on YouTube too. There's a lyric video on there. On social media, if you check out @James the Heartist, you'll find the links, but all digital platforms.
Beautiful. Hopefully James will today also give us a few lines of the song, and we want to go a bit into detail regarding the whole context, the subject, what got you to write it. So
Saffron, the inception of Saffron began when I received a message that the guru that I followed for 14 years now had been involved in allegations as far back as 1969 or 1971. I forget the exact time frame. That he'd been involved in abuse and manipulation and coercion with some devotees. And when that information found me, I think like many people, not my guru. That's happened to many people. Many gurus, but not my guru.
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, across all kinds of different nationalities, religions and so on, there were many scandals over the years where people, let's say, abused their spiritual authority to do certain things, right?
It happens too often in many different traditions.
Yeah.
It's a sad, true reality that we're faced with daily. And of course, in the light of holiness and those that represent holiness, which is what saffron indicates. Saffron is the color of the robes worn by many monks particularly. Saffron pertains to the color of a Hindu monk, and the word Saraswati, it mentions it in the song, is a particular lineage of monkhood.
Right. And
this particular lineage goes back as far as Adi Shankara, I think 800 BC or something. Mm-hmm. It's a long line of sannyasis, which means monk. So you have the bad taste of saffron, and then this taste of accepting the reality that I'll be damned to see these tattered threads of a sannyasi. Why tattered threads? Because a monk only has one piece of cloth.
Right.
To keep that holy, untainted. It represents purification, sacrifice. And the biggest one is ahimsa, which is non-violence.
Right.
Non-violence.
Yeah, that's something to explain to people, because you remember, James, off camera when we first talked about it, about this particular case, which we come to in a second, my first reaction was like, so what, he had maybe some partners, some girlfriends, I don't mind, but then you said, that's not the problem. The problem is, don't put on the robe, right, and then preach something in public. And
when you represent being a celibate monk,
yeah,
and something for you changes, that's totally okay.
Right.
Be honest about it.
Yes.
Be open about it. Be human about it.
Yes.
The projections of many, and myself included, the projections that we have onto the Guru is that they're beyond being human. And it's a lovely concept to have.
Yeah.
It's a lovely aspiration to attain. However, the representative of being a celibate monk means that having interactions, one is free to do what they like.
Because it's also a big responsibility, right? I mean, people will come to you for advice. You may be, expected to help or give ideas as well. So you should be a person of purity and of trust. Somebody you can trust, isn't it?
Yeah, and breaking that kind of trust is disgraceful.
Yeah, I mean, especially when it's about, let's say, a spiritual place. That's the last place you want to see that kind of hypocrisy, right? And
yeah, it is.
So that's maybe for people to understand what we talk about here. Of course, in society there are many horrible cases of abuse and things which go wrong. But if it's in a place which is supposed to be a holy environment, not only physically, but also spiritually, right? Where people, go to find their inner selves, to do sacred things. Of course, if then in such a place these things happen and go wrong, that makes it especially serious, harsh. Or what do you think?
In a place where things like that aren't supposed to go wrong,
Yeah.
and let's call it as it is, sacredness is feeling safe.
Right.
Yeah.
And
being safe and being held in very vulnerable spaces within yourself and outside yourself.
Yeah.
The influence that one has at that level, you don't have room to make mistake.
No, exactly.
That is the responsibility that you uphold.
Yeah.
Now, if things change for you, that's okay.
Right.
And I would like to say that upon receiving the news, some moments of disbelief, because I'm holding the image, association, relationship that I have built up over the years. Now, what's being presented is contrary to what I have believed. Now, that doesn't mean that at that moment I believe it because I've heard it. But now I investigate for myself to find out, is this true? What really happened? Who's talking about these things? And upon my inquiry, not many people had spoken about it.
Right. But wait a second, James. So, yes, can we get into this? Can we also maybe take a step back in terms of time? And can you explain to the viewers? So, here in the song also, it's about Swami Satchitananda. Can you first go back in time and explain? So, who was Swami Satchitananda and what role, influence did he play in your life? And to many people up to today, right? Because what happened, we come to that, but there was a separation in the whole community, right? The people who thought that it's all made up and the people who thought there's some truth to at least some of the allegations. Can we go back in time?
Yeah, of course. So my first interaction with Swami Satchitananda was through Integral Yoga. He's the founder of Integral Yoga.
Right.
And truth is one, paths are many. And I think I remember speaking about it in part 1.
Yeah.
That the many different religions, all being that of truth, and that all religions are unified under God. Not one of them is exclusive. All are exclusive. So naturally, walking the path of Integral Yoga and yogic principles, Guru Bhakti, which is devotion to the Guru, is a big part of yogic lifestyle. Not all follow the path of Guru Bhakti, but it's very interwoven within Integral Yoga. I mean, it's quite difficult for it not to be, because his form is everywhere, as the founder of and a very influential being. He's touched many people's lives. Yeah,
and also that person is also a representation for all these beliefs, no? For let's say,
Satchitananda means truth, knowledge, bliss, absolute.
Right.
So when we talk about representing, your name represents truth, knowledge, bliss, absolute. And as a monk, you're given a name. You're bestowed a name. That you live up to that name.
Right.
You lose your birth name and you're given a
Right.
spiritual name to uphold, and then your work in the world is that. It pertains to that. You are the living embodiment of what your name represents.
And then
so
you're part of the lineage, like also like...
Saraswati would be the holy
Mhm.
order of Swami Satchitananda.
Right, and I mean, he has written many books. I myself also, I mean, I was to some point also influenced by his work. I never got very deep into it, but I mean, he was a very, very big part of the whole yoga movement, also especially bringing it to the West, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're talking about 60s, 70s.
We're talking Woodstock Guru.
Woodstock, right? He was on Woodstock. So he literally, like you said, he started the Integral Yoga Center. He has been a big influence of this whole movement,
Yeah.
right? He has written many books about all the good stuff, let's say, like love and taming your ego and gratitude and all the good stuff, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, his teachings are beautiful.
Yes.
His teachings are beautiful and made a very big impression in my heart that such a man existed in the world and touched people with the magnanimity that he had.
Yes. That's why it would be more accurate to say that there were actually 3 groups, not only 2, because there was also a third group of followers who said things may have happened, but you can separate the message from the messenger. I can still follow his teachings, right?
Right.
And they try to... Anyways, I would like to make a short interlude because, as you can see, this topic is delicate. So we want to also be fair. Keep in mind that Satchitananda is also not physically alive anymore. So as you can see, I printed just a bit of content. I will also put the links in the description in case you want to really go deep into this yourself. But if you don't mind, I would like to first quote what's on Wikipedia, right? So let me just read out a short sentence of that. So in 1991, about a decade before his death, protesters accused Satchitananda of molesting students and carried signs outside a hotel where he was staying in Virginia that read, "Stop the abuse." Several former disciples claimed he used his spiritual authority to coerce them into sexual relationships. After those first allegations, several more women made similar allegations of sexual manipulation and abuse. Satchitananda denied all the alleged abuses but refused to be interviewed about them. In response to the controversy, at least 12 board members of various branches of the Integral Yoga Institute stepped down. Ex-members formed a support group, the Healing Through Truth Network, to support his alleged victims to raise awareness of his misconduct claims. None of the alleged victims filed criminal charges, so I guess it's fair to say also, especially since Satchitananda is no longer with us, that to our knowledge there was no criminal charge. There was as such also no trial or prosecution,
No.
legally speaking.
No.
Right?
And to my knowledge, it's come across to me that many of the interactions with young devotees, it was consensual.
Yes!
Which was the case with
Shanti Norris.
Shanti Norris.
So I will put the link in the description. Shanti Norris has written a public letter to the Integral Yoga Center, and the center has also responded to that. I can't read everything out, otherwise it would be too long.
And I would just like to say actually that I don't know you personally, but I send you a big hug and well done. Your bravery is unquestionable, and I know how challenging it must have been for you and your family. Your letter reads from the heart. It's very truthful, as painful as it is. You've shed much needed light in corners and spaces that needed to happen. So thank you very much, and
thank you
for
your courage.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, just a very short part of her letter.
Oh, please.
Yeah. So she says, that's Shanti Norris, for the sake of my children and family, I'm sharing that I had a sexual relationship with Swamiji on and off over the 10-year period that I worked with him closely as his personal assistant. Family secrets have not been family secrets have not been healthy. I'm no longer willing to keep the secret because to do so is harmful to me and to my family. This is a personal decision primarily for the benefit of my family and myself. I've confided to therapists and close friends for many years, believing that there was no need or benefit to disclose my relationship further. I have no desire to harm the organization's work. However, I feel that the Integral Yoga Institute's long-time adamant decision to refuse to investigate and acknowledge the truth is harmful to everyone. I entered into a relationship with Swamiji in 1969, willingly, feeling that I fully understood what I was doing. I feel that I've benefited enormously from my interactions with him over the years. On the other hand, after a number of years, it became clear to me that he was having sexual relationships with other women. He took advantage of many of his female students' innocence and adoration and continually mimicked the life of a celibate monk while living differently. So, like you said, no, it's also, and maybe that's also something we can limit ourselves here. It's more about also the hypocrisy, right?
Yeah.
Secrecy.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, personally, I was quite pragmatic. Look, if a teacher like that says, look, I have my human side, personally, I don't have a big problem if he's honest about it. No?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, truth, knowledge, bliss, absolute. Be honest about it. Maybe there was a change in him.
Yeah.
To keep that to yourself, and everything that he had built, to turn the teachings to selfish motives, whilst you have a young lady who's selflessly dedicating her life and time to serve the legacy and mission and vision that he had. She selflessly wished to not disclose that, to keep that alive.
Yeah.
Her selflessness was keeping his selfishness
That's right.
safe until it was no longer possible for her.
Yeah.
You know how hard that must have been?
Yeah.
To say, I need to be selfish now and I don't want to cause anybody harm, but I've been caused harm.
And also knowing that it's a big organization with many followers.
And knowing that you're not going to be believed.
Yeah. You'll be,
do you know how many women don't feel believed when they're violated?
Yeah.
It's not okay.
No.
It's not okay.
And unfortunately...
Because it's too easy. It's too easy for someone in a position of power like that to hush things up.
Yes.
And say, if they don't believe me, that's their problem. It's very easy to say that. The question I have is, why don't they believe you? Why? Why has this unfolded?
You know,
why
can I say something about that?
Yes.
You know what I believe to answer that why? I think because, and that's probably human, if many people have been influenced by that whole group and energy and person, and they've devoted and invested and hold a person up, right? And then suddenly to revise your assumptions and beliefs, there's automatically resistance.
For sure.
Isn't it?
Your whole entire association and identity, and I'll even say attachment gets completely crushed. The idea that you had is not the idea in its full light.
And ironically, yoga is also about detachment as well. You shouldn't be attached. Can we talk about this a bit? You shouldn't be too attached to a person.
When this information found me, I contacted a very dear brother of mine who lives at Yogaville, used to be a Swami. I won't disclose his name. There's no need. But I rang him because I needed confirmation from someone that I trusted and was around during all of these time periods.
Right, firsthand.
And he gave me a direct answer. I already had my own feelings towards it. I had read Shanti's letter and believed the words within it. Not my guru, slowly sunk to my heart that my ideas now that have been established as following a guru that wasn't in the body. He died in 2002, and when I found him was 2010.
Right.
I hadn't met him. So all of my projections that I put onto him, this is a moment now of maybe that shouldn't be done. Maybe you should look closer at what you're projecting on to a human.
Yes.
And after that phone call, it didn't take me very long. It didn't take me very long to get rid of the idea of a body, a person, a form. I was always seeking the guru within, which is his direct teaching.
Right.
Swami Satchitananda says, use me as a crutch until you no longer need me. And I feel like he gave people a key there.
Yeah.
He's saying, until you no longer need me. So why would I use you as a crutch? If you're pointing, eventually there'll be a time where I don't need you. Surely you would rather me live like that.
Right.
Surely you would rather me live where I don't have a dependency of you.
Okay, yeah, I would personally think, yeah, but there's also...
This is only my experience.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're just exchanging ideas freely, you know. I would think maybe there is a place for this whole constellation, you know, of like maybe you can learn specific things from different people. The problem in this case is, of course, that when you hear about all of this, you know, how can you, for example, I can't read his books the same way. I can't. You know what I mean? Like, because it's so...
Well, on the note of that, of books, after that phone call, about 5 minutes of reflection, I gathered all my belongings that pertain, my possessions, which my lifestyle doesn't lead me to have many, but I had many books and articles and all things that pertain to Swami Satchitananda. And quite openly, I'll say, I'm not much of a reader. I don't read much stuff.
Did you throw it away?
I didn't throw it away because the teachings have a place.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
I gathered all of those possessions that I never read anyway. They were just things that I collected in his honor.
Right.
But to not much gain, because they were just there. It's taking up a bit of space. I gathered all of those things, respectfully packed them in a bag, and I delivered them to the Integral Yoga Center.
Right.
For all those who continue to make use of that work. But I no longer wanted those on my persons.
Yeah. And
not anymore.
Yeah, I think, you know, one also has to be fair. Someone's life achievement is probably the wrong word, but their life offerings, the things they did in their lives, all the good things as well. Probably one shouldn't be too ignorant to say, oh, you know, it all doesn't matter anymore. This thing happened. It was horrible. It shouldn't have happened. So everything good that person did in their lives has no value. I guess that's also too extreme. Everybody has to make the personal choice.
Sure.
Of course, you know, if my problem is with the hypocrisy, it's always in the back of the head then. It's like, it's a bit similar, like, it's probably a bad example, but let's say you like your musician and the music, and then you learn a lot of bad stuff about the musician, and you don't listen to it the same way, because maybe there's some bias, whatever, some bad taste of Saffron, if you want to call it that way. You see what I mean?
Well, I mean, this happened with an artist called Narco Bear, who is I've never met him, but he's a brother. He's a soul brother. He's a part of cancel culture. He had some situations unfold where he was learning how his position can easily be led astray, not only by people around him that are influencing certain spaces, after shows, women being around,
right,
but also his temptation and falling into those areas that got him into a lot of trouble. He's openly speaking about his pain in his music. If you listen, he's openly disclosing the struggles that he's had with that. He's not hiding anything. And he's a part of a cancel culture and has in fact been cancelled by many big platforms. He was a leader and has had to heal a lot from that. But being transparent about it is the way to heal from it.
Yeah.
This is a different situation where the man himself, so to speak, isn't able to speak. It's no longer here.
Exactly. That's
no longer here.
That's why, exactly, and that's also why I think one should be fair in that discussion. So first of all, as I said before,
and I would like to say that it's a difficult subject to have. Not that one shouldn't speak about it, but it's difficult.
It's very difficult. And I want to
for me personally, which is why Saffron happened. Saffron happened as a way for me to say all I wanted to say about this subject. And as I began to write it, it was a personal expression of how I felt towards why I followed a guru like this. Satchitananda, truth, knowledge, bliss, absolute. That's not a double life.
No.
It's a life of purity in all ways, in the world and out the world. As soon as I found out that and felt a resonance of truth within it, I then decided these things need to drop in my life. They need to go. It was the biggest liberation for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally. But look at the expense. Look at the harm caused.
Right.
Underneath that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I want to also be open. When I was thinking about this whole topic, first I came to the conclusion it's not even my place to talk about this or whatever. But then I actually had a very strong dream, which was like a bit like synchronicity, and I suddenly had the feeling, no, we need to talk about it. Even if it's a delicate, difficult subject, it's important to not shy away from also these dark chapters in our, collective consciousness, I guess, because like we talked before also, no, spirituality is not just holding hands and singing Kumbaya. It's also about the dark night of the soul, the crisis. No, when you're standing at the cliff and it's really a difficult situation and the truth comes out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have experienced your own...
The truth will always come out.
Yeah.
The truth will always come out. Yeah.
And I mean, like also yourself and your whole spiritual process, I mean, it was not just all a ponyform, right? You yourself have also seen, like, difficult phases in life, no? Where you had to really get back, on your feet and all that, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And maybe in the future we talk about that another time.
Yeah. I would like to say actually that I really appreciate and I'm grateful for you to open a space to have these conversations that I encourage to happen more often. Many subjects are, this one has been hush-hushed.
Yeah.
Many of these women coming out to try to find an open healing place to speak were shunned.
Yeah.
And I've experienced, you mentioned, and just briefly go into it, but you mentioned
go to
the harsh realities of spirituality and being in communities, and I'll even say cults, which many communities fall under depending on the leadership.
Right.
Firsthand I've had this exchange of energy that has been horrific.
Where somebody was in a position of responsibility, but maybe was not careful enough, right? And then this has impact on yourself, isn't it?
Well, in yoga we talk about modification of the mind, and one of those is misconception.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yes.
It's difficult for me to open.
Sure. But let's not get out of ourselves, because I hold that whole story, because for that we need another podcast where we can really go into depth, right?
Sure.
So regarding this case, also just to do it in the right way. So as you can see, there are different letters, even recent ones, by the way, from 2023, from women who were affected. The Integral Yoga Center has responded. This one is from October 2022, so rather late. And I think it's right if at least I read 2 sentences from that as well. If you want to read the whole thing, please go on the link. But what they're saying is, in 91, allegations of inappropriate sexual words or actions on the part of Swami Satchitananda were made by several women. The allegations were widely discussed at Satchitananda Ashram and our integral yoga institutes. Concerns and doubts were expressed. Many questions were asked of Swami Satchitananda at meetings and at a public gathering at the ashram. Swami Satchitananda as well as senior members responded to questions by the media. This process was very difficult for everyone involved, for those making the claims, for those learning of them, and for the entire community. So as far as I can see, they're not getting into what actually happened, this paragraph. It has been 20 years since Swami Satchitananda passed away. He is no longer here to respond to any accusations, past or present, to admit, deny, or explain them. Mm-hmm. That's fair enough. We have to also take this into account. Yep. It's not possible for the organization to make a statement on his behalf or to definitely comment about consensual relationships or allegations of comments of a sexual nature or sexual advances that are alleged to have occurred 30 or 50 years ago. In all fairness, right? I mean, so they're not,
sure,
right? They're not taking a side as such or denying. They are saying, look, it has been decades ago. We see that people are affected. We feel for it. But they're even saying moving forward, you know, so they're concluding, just to summarize, so they're concluding their statement kind of like, look, we have to move forward.
Yeah.
The ashram has a lot of students around the world, you know, there's a lot of positive things. And to be honest, personally, James, I also think, for me, it's all a lesson. When I see this story, right? When I see Satchitananda, these things happening, as a person trying to spiritually develop, I always think this is a lesson, you know. So what can I learn? The human side, you know, of people. Like before you put people on a pedestal, remember that most people have a very human side, and you know, probably this. You could also say this about a lot of other people. I'm sure Jesus had a very human side as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. But I also feel like the person that's being put on the pedestal has an opportunity to not be put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
This is you have that choice.
Exactly, step down, isn't it?
You have that choice.
If people say go up there, say it's not my place, the pedestal.
Not necessarily that it's not your place, but everyone is the same.
Yeah.
The master and the student, the only difference is the master's probably got a little bit more experience or done it before the student. So the master knows that, the student's yet to find that out. So for the master to allow being put on a pedestal, this is his own choice.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, a lot of modern gurus you see these days on YouTube and so on, I always wonder, like,
yeah, in Saffron it says fake modern day saints taint sacred cultures.
Did they go there, or did somebody say go there? Well, they went there also.
You're allowing these things to happen.
Yeah, because there will be one yoga teacher now we never heard the name of, who's living in the mountains, and you know, maybe people around the mountain know about it, and, you know, but we will not see him on YouTube.
No.
So in other words, yeah, I agree. You know, like if you
like it becomes a business. You know.
Yeah. Also
it becomes a business, and I know we're in the world, but it gets a little bit.
Becomes like a product, no, like.
Becomes a brand.
A brand.
Becomes a brand. You know.
Yeah.
And then. And then some. Like it's, my heart's heavy, you know, as we discuss these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can hear it from the song as well, no? And you really succeeded, I think, in getting this into good words.
Yeah, the opening line. There's no exception to the rule, lest one revoke the vow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truth be told, no, what's the next one? Truth.
A curtain closed,
right?
And a saffron robe fell. Behind closed doors, you're someone else. But be that out in the world, just let go of your vows. And in fact, many swamis that took up monkhood were later became married, and Swami Satchitananda agreed to let them take their vows.
Right.
To remove their vows without any shame. This the point I want to make. The representation of Saraswati, you have that much that's on your shoulders. You can't now be the one to renounce your vows if all of a sudden something in you changes. But you know what you can do? You can grant people the grace that you can't grant yourself. Does that make sense?
Sure.
You can grant your disciples that have taken up monkhood, you can grant them to go back into relationship and marriage.
Right.
It will be good for you to be, walk the path of being married and renounce your vows. For you, it's okay, but I can't do that.
Right.
According to the private relationship had behind closed doors.
And that's the problem, isn't it? It's like, I think it's a combination of secrecy and hypocrisy. Because again, personally, being outside of that, whole community, I wouldn't have any issue if somebody says, look, I have my partner, in my spiritual path.
Many teachers have a partner.
Yeah.
And many teachers have more than one, if they're open about it.
Well, every person has their own path. I really believe, like, some people, for them, it's better to be celibate. Some people, it's good to have a partner. Some people maybe have other models. It's not a one-size-fits-all, right?
No.
So, and like you say, a good teacher recognizes in the different people, oh, that could be your path, that could be her path, that could be his path, isn't it?
Sure.
So, like, on a individual basis, right? Because, like we talked a bit about last time, we all have also our different path, our different mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always, when there are these general rules, you should do this. Does it apply to that or this person? No. It's always like from person to person different. But yeah, I just wonder, why not openly say that? Or even change the lineage and saying, look, in the past, this has been our tradition. And, I feel that since I'm now heading the lineage, we have to go with the time and adjust whatever, I'm just thinking out aloud. You know what I mean? Like, there are many ways of handling, even religions are changing bit by bit these days, right? Some Christian churches become very tolerant towards homosexual relationships, all kinds of things, right? Society is changing as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
We become more and more open. So what I'm saying is, like, why not taking the step and making sure that there's no conflict, right? That I'm doing this, but outside I'm saying this.
I go back to the word ahimsa, which means non-violence.
Right.
In many forms, violence is presenting itself throughout this entire organization. And it was left by someone that's no longer here. So when you speak about the lesson is for all involved. Even for people outside of that, we can learn from this.
Yeah. So what do you think, James? How can an organization like that progress into the future? Do you have any thoughts? Like, what's the right way? Because there are also all these positive things.
It's a very difficult thing to answer, simply because if you do have these 3 different subgroups that we've mentioned now.
Yeah.
If the leadership falls in any one of those subgroups,
right,
and they are carrying out the works and vision that was left by Swami Satchitananda, and I would like to say that vision was heaven on earth. That was the vision. What we're experiencing now within that organization isn't heaven on earth.
Yeah.
It's division, it's separation, it's betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
Abuse of power, and that's unfolding even more so with people today within that organization. I have a close friend of mine who has been shunned from his position,
right,
and a lot has been projected onto him that he had no dealings with,
mm-hmm,
and he's no longer associated with them.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's a part of a different subgroup. So he has in his heart what he feels to be true. They have in their heart what they feel to be true.
Yeah.
Well, what to do about that? Remove yourself, or if you don't remove yourself, you will be removed, because you cause a disturbance to the legacy that we are trying to maintain.
Yeah, but at the same time, I understand, it makes a lot of sense what you say, but at the same time, don't you think that when you zoom out, that there's also a big lesson for everyone? I mean, seeing, the separation and, some people holding on and saying, no, we need to protect the legacy at all costs. Other people saying, look, the truth needs to come out even if it hurts and whatever. And other people saying, look, stuff may have happened, but take the content for the content. Don't you think that in some strange way, this is also a lesson for everyone that, first of all, you have to also think for yourself. You have to recognize also darkness in humans and their shadow sides. And even as an organization, that's another point. No, like, couldn't you even conclude that whenever you have a group, or before you mentioned cult also, whenever you have a group of people trying to establish, rules and you know what I mean? Like, couldn't you conclude that you always have to be careful when this takes place?
For the most part, rules keep us safe.
Right.
Rules keep us safe. You can't walk on the motorway.
Mm.
In America, jaywalking, there's a fine for that.
Yeah.
Why do we get a fine for that? Just to make sure people don't jaywalk. The first thing is to keep them safe, right?
Right.
The fine is to ensure that they don't do it.
Right.
Among spiritual communities, energies and keeping your vital energy safe means not playing around with it and indulging into promiscuous activity.
Mm.
Right? So it's a rule to follow.
Yeah.
It's to keep you safe.
Yeah. I mean, the same in Germany. Like in Germany, it's a Christian country, there are many churches, and obviously the church is a space for children and so on also to get together, right? And around 5 years ago, we had many massive scandals regarding abuse there. And I agree what you say. Like, if there is a place like that, there are rules, and there are better people who should make sure that these rules are implemented, that people are safe, right? That the same like when you go and you go to church and you say like, oh, how do you say it in English again? The little spaces where you can go and you can talk to the priest to talk about your sins. Confessions, right? I mean, that is the tradition, the structure which is in place to make sure that this works, right? Because if you can't trust the person on the other side you're doing your confessions to keep that confidential, what's the point, right?
Yeah, right.
So I agree with that. I mean, like, the rules are important for protection, right? So if we can't guarantee that, what's the point for the whole thing? What do you think?
And the biggest hypocrisy is if this rule is for all of us, but the one who creates that rule is above that rule, then I go back to there's no exception to the rule, lest one revoke the vow. Like, live your life how you want to live your life. But if other people are following a rule to keep them safe that you yourself have put in place, and I don't mean the rule of celibacy, it's one of many,
right.
It's not even a rule, it's just a principle in which one conducts their life. And you rightly said, all individuals operate in their own way, and what's best for them and most suited to their life's path will be shown to them and how they resonate with that. Not all are supposed to be celibate.
As a footnote, would you mind talking a little bit about that subject? A little bit? Celibacy?
Yeah. Well, celibacy is a practice that has been with me since 21. It hasn't been an unbroken practice. I've been in and out of relationships. But celibacy was something that found me and something that I explored deeply and I've gained many benefits from. I've also seen the difficulties of holding a celibate life and how easy it is to be influenced by the other sex.
Oh yeah.
It's very easy. And for one that it hasn't claimed to be a monk, you're not breaking any vow. It's a vow you make with yourself, ultimately.
Right.
So even breaking that vow behind closed doors, the only person that you're lying to is yourself.
Right.
In this situation, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's very, very different.
Right.
But The practice of celibacy has brought many benefits, but has also shown me how difficult it is to maintain a life like that.
And the general idea is also to not get attached to things such as lust, right? Or like to
it's identifying the difference.
Mhm.
Lustful actions everything is cause and effect.
Yeah.
So a lustful action will bring its own consequence. A loving action will bring its own consequence.
Right.
Everything is cause and effect.
So is there also a karmic level to some degree? I always love the karma aspect of
Everything is striving for balance.
Yeah.
Everything is striving for balance. Even this very situation, obstacle, challenge, this is providing an opportunity to restore balance.
Yes.
And a harmonious level.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? From an artistic perspective, I find it brave and very innovative. To make a song about it, to talk your truth about it, and you to hit the right mood in the music. I know it wasn't easy to record that, right?
It wasn't,
because you have to really make sure that the emotions come across as they should.
I'm also. James the Heartist comes because most of what I do comes from my heart. I try to live my life like that. That's all I can do. It's all I'm responsible for. The song is a direct reflection of how I truly feel. I'm not blaming.
Yes. Exactly.
I'm not shaming.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying I have a bad taste. This is not okay by me. I stand with the women that it happened to. I believe the women that it happened to. Irrespective of how hard it was for me to believe and see the Guru in a different light, that's the working of the mind. The attachment to a form is what the third verse addresses in Saffron. It's now is to live the teachings really. To really live your truth with authenticity and your own authority. But there's no blame. I don't condone because of the harm that's been caused. It hasn't been caused to me directly, but the women that have suffered and continue to suffer under the hands and disguise of I'll say it as it is, predators like this, of this nature. These conversations, as difficult as it is for me personally to have, they need to happen more often. We have a right to protect our family and the friends, our family that we choose. Sangha represents that. Sangha is spiritual community.
Yeah.
It's people gathering together for truth.
Yeah.
And the hypocrisy just goes even further than that. We are gathered here for truth.
Yeah.
But yet, these lies, deceit, betrayal, and even worse than that, devastation, souls being destroyed. It's not okay. It's not okay. That doesn't mean that with all of that hardship, there isn't a greater lesson. It doesn't mean that. Balance is always striving to find itself.
Mm-hmm.
Live the teachings now. Live the teachings now.
Right. Wow, that's a powerful statement. I feel that.
And if I can be personal too, to just demonstrate how easy it is for coercion to take place.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual beings are open.
Yeah.
They're curious.
Yeah.
They want to touch unseen places. And it takes bravery to do that.
Yeah.
Story for you. Happened. Real time. Two beings. A man and a woman. The man is massaging the woman's shoulders. It starts very kind, very gentle.
Right.
It then transforms itself into giving a loving exchange of gratitude, open-heartedness. They indulge into a hug. That hug goes on for 15 minutes, which isn't uncommon among spiritual community.
Yeah.
You ever hug a tree? Like, I recommend it.
Yeah, I do that.
Beautiful.
Did you know that you have to ask for permission first?
It's beautiful.
Sorry, but let's get back on track.
No. But see, the coercion of ask for permission first.
Right.
That space is open. So the asking of permission is an energy exchange on very subtle levels where one needn't ask because the space is open.
Right.
And there's an unsaid trust in between these two beings exploring love for one another, for what love is, nothing else. No other force influenced in that moment. So a hug happens. That hug energetically turns into something else.
Yeah.
Now who's leading who?
Right.
The legs of the woman end up going around the man's lap, which is very different to a loving, friendly hug.
Yeah.
Now, 15 minutes is going by. There's two people outside of this scenario looking in, confused as to what this energy is presenting. Why? Because it can go in many different directions.
Right.
No judgment is taking place. It's a common word in spirituality. No judgment. What about discernment of what's taking place here? This is more than a friendly, loving hug. There's something else happening.
Mm.
Now, they both know they're in a safe place. Why? Because there's two other people observing them.
Right.
So it wouldn't go further than that. But the subtlety of why I'm sharing this is because after that hug, the man left the space and went on his way. The woman broke out into tears. After the event, she felt abused. She felt manipulated.
Yes.
It triggered trauma in her life that had happened, where she had found herself in similar places. Now we can say the naivety of that woman. We can. Provocative dress sense.
Right. But
you can go into those details, which detract us from what's happening.
Yeah.
Where do you place blame now?
So one thing you said, so
this is just how easy it is for a situation to get away with itself. Other forces of nature, we call them the gunas in yogic principles.
Right.
They come in play.
Absolutely. I mean, there are many levels of this whole situation you described. It could, of course...
Yeah, so if that can happen...
Yeah.
So many other things can happen.
Yeah.
And so many other things do happen.
Yeah.
This lady, bless her, innocently received the love of hug.
Mm-hmm.
Later, knowledge was found that this man was playing with Kundalini energy.
Right. If you don't mind, can we go a bit into this? Because...
Kundalini energy tends to arouse and awaken the sexual center.
Yes.
And use that energy to transform like a surge of energy within oneself and provoke expansion of awareness. Exactly. But it's rooted in sexual energy.
Yeah, if you don't mind that I just say a few things about that, and that's where we could really get deep, because I mean, if you learn to manipulate these kind of energy centers, the chakras, the kundalini, in yourself and others, and you use these kind of abilities to get people to do certain things, you could argue that's already some kind of manipulation, isn't it? Like you are basically, using...
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
that's a very subtle discussion, because where does it start, where does it end, right? So we're talking beyond any legal aspects, right? It's far deeper, because the same, like if you have an authority in this community, a spiritual authority, people look up to you. That gives you also power and energy, right? So now you decide how you use that. So legally something may be consensual, but the legal stuff apart, on other levels you may have coerced someone into, doing something. That's a very difficult discussion, but yeah, I mean, the example you gave shows that this can be complex.
Yeah, and the detriment is huge.
Yeah, and it's a big topic these days also in society in general.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, personally it blows my mind, James, when I think as a man, right? In what situation would you ever, try to push a woman into doing what she doesn't want? I mean, personally, as an old school gentleman or whatever, this is not even in the realm of possibilities for me. So it's difficult to understand that. Of course, people, they may, let's say they're single, that they're looking for a partner, maybe they try to put themselves in a better light or be a better version of themselves, and, they work on themselves, good, there's no problem with that. And, people may interact and date these days like they do, going for a meal or coffee, getting to know each other. That's all fine. But then, let's be honest, to go beyond, this game of taking, giving, right? Approaching each other, that's a big step. And also spiritually, it can quickly become dark, isn't it?
Yeah, it can.
Talk with it, say it as it is.
Yeah. Especially if you're well versed in the practices of Tantra.
Right.
Which is a Kundalini practice in its own right. It's a path of yoga called Tantra Yoga.
Yeah.
If you're well versed in that, then you have even more of an ability for coercion to just look like subtle influence and suggestion. Consciousness is suggestive.
Yeah.
Manipulation is always at play, both good and bad.
Yeah.
Both light and dark. It's always at play.
No. And there's a little footnote here that, Tantra on its own is a whole spectrum, right? Where we even have also sexual healing on one side and other things, right?
That's right.
So there's
that brings me to a point of the Guru's ability to be able to transmit Shaktipa, which is a transmission of energy that can give the vision of God, darshan. It can give the vision of God. It can happen through a look, it can happen through a touch, it can happen, and when I say touch, I mean just a simple physical touch.
Yeah.
It can happen through sound, within a mantra. So with those abilities, nothing else outside of that is necessary.
No.
Again, we go to choice.
And that was for me personally, James, when we talked off camera before, that was for me the tipping point and a bit of a realization, because like a person of that standard who has all these kind of abilities, let's say
there would be absolutely no need. No need. Say someone did need to receive healing that's towards a traumatic experience from something to do with an intimacy. Yeah. Right?
You don't need to physically touch them to heal, is it?
No. You don't need to reproduce the act to replace a new way of seeing it. This is ludicrous.
I fully agree with that.
This is absolutely ludicrous. And there are people that play in the realm of being promiscuous, and I think it's called polyamorism.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's all well and good. I will say it's the most intimate thing you share with another being. You are entering into another being, quite literally, and there is a transmission that takes place for both, and those kinds of energies are very, very sacred and aren't to be abused like that at all. It's a very sacred privilege to give birth to life.
Oh yeah.
This is what the path of celibacy has taught me and shown me, that we have the ability to reproduce life. And the woman especially is the channel of Mother Earth to bring souls onto this planet.
Yeah. It's sacred.
It's sacred.
And
the act is sacred.
Yeah.
And that's all I say about that.
I feel that really, why, James? Because that's exactly the point. These days there's a lot of hookup culture and people don't think much about connecting to people also sexually, and the truth is, it's a massive thing. People don't realize, both men and women, that by getting intimate with someone, you pick up their energies,
yes, you do.
the traumas. It can sometimes take you years to repair that,
yes,
right?
Yes.
People are careless these days.
Yoga is about union.
Yeah.
You are entering into union with that being.
Yes.
You become married to that being.
Yes.
Before any ceremony, before any legal agreement,
Yeah.
you are entering into marriage and direct union with that being. That's how sacred that is.
I fully agree. And when I also think back from my younger self and so on, there is no point in trying to have so many partners because, people underestimate the effects of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a big, big thing to connect to someone. And yeah, I mean, that's of course a whole discussion on its own. I personally believe, James, for every individual there is a path. For me, for example, twin flame is an important thing also. It's very pure, it's powerful. But I believe for every person it's also a bit different, Like I think for some people it's important to connect to one person or to no person up to the point where people try, open relationships and all these things. Spiritually, I'm skeptical. I'm sure there's someone who makes it work for them. How do I know? It can probably work if it's done in the right way. I don't know. I don't have experience in that sense. But yeah, I want to say, especially if younger people are listening, be very selective. Be careful. Don't get influenced by this hookup culture. Oh, it's not a big thing to get closer to someone. It's a very big thing. My personal suggestion is, bless you, be selective. Okay. Really, really don't just, let it happen. Be very, very careful because it's a big commitment to someone and can be consequential.
And to yourself.
And to yourself.
It's a big commitment to yourself.
100%. Anyways, James, thank you so much. That was a very deep talk. I loved it. And I'm happy that we did it.
Yeah.
I felt we had to do it. I hope we did this whole topic justice. Otherwise, apologies if you think that, one has to go more into detail and all that. I will put some links if you prefer to read yourself and judge for yourself. And yeah, in the end, let's go back to the music, James. So, Saffron is a powerful song. I love it. Thank you for writing it. It's now published. It's very, very special, very unique. Please listen to it, share it, and to take a positive outlook of what you plan for the future, James. Because today, before the podcast, we had a long personal talk.
Yeah.
And we had many realizations, were very interesting things.
Yes.
There's definitely another long podcast in you, if not more.
It's coming soon. Yeah, I would like to say thank you for this opportunity. I felt moments throughout that podcast where you were talking for both of us. It is a difficult subject in general, but it needs to happen more. So I share your sentiment in hoping that the expression of it has come across.
Yeah. And then bless everyone who on this world was affected by these things.
Yeah, the second verse in Saffron addresses the time period in which we're living and how dark and heavy things are and may continue to get. And it says, in this Kali Yuga, which is the time period that we're living on earth according to the Hindu calendar, in this Kali Yuga, it is make or break. And we cannot take a break. All we do is take in this age of vultures. Now to make a generation great, take the weight of an ape off the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
These fake modern day saints taint sacred cultures.
Wow.
Like sacred sculptures that's laced with spray paint that leaves a bad taste, a bad trace of odors. The persuasive power of aromas, mistaking snakes as sages, saviors as alligators, a lotus flower sinking in a lake of allegations. Hare Ram! It's a prayer that we step into our own authority at this time. To get there is together. We need to do it together. No one is exclusive. No one is above anybody else. This is what I meant about being on the same level. Put everybody on a pedestal. This is what I've done my whole entire life. Raise people up.
Wow.
Raise people up to that. Show them what they are to you, so they may believe that in themselves too. I don't mean projection. Raise them up. Influence their energies. Fire their energies. Invest in seeing the vision they have for their life. Not your vision of their life. What they see for their life. Fire that. Empower that. Inspire that. And you'll be walking amongst the greatest human beings ever. That's what that second verse is. Take the weight of an ape off the shoulders. Share the load and heaviness of this time together. Make it light. Making it light isn't making it what it's not. It's sharing the burden. Many hands make light work. That's what that verse is. And the third verse of the song is a direct message to my family, direct message to my friends that I know it's difficult. And the same tears that fall from our face when we're happy, they fall when we're sad. The water knows no difference. It's not condoning what's happened. It's you have the power. You have the power within you to discern, decide, and lead your life with truth under the Almighty.
Wow. I have nothing to add to that, James. Thank you so much, brother. Proud of you.
Thank you, Bert.
Incredible. Thank you for your time. And hopefully we'll get James on in the future again about other things as well. And bless you all.
God bless you. God bless you.
Goodbye.